Hi, in this lecture we are going to cover a two main topic here: how to do some operation on columns main variable, and also how to apply the same operation in all the variable at the same time. So to do that, we are going to create a small data set, and we are going to see how to handle that small data set and the techniques that we apply on a small data set. We can extend that to a very big data set. Why we chose to use the small data set, we can easily visualize and see how that the technique that we are applying behave. So let us see. In this case, we are going to use the apply function. The basically apply function allow you to do a particular operation on a set of variable. So let us see what the apply function does. We can simply type question mark and see question mark, then type apply as it is here, and see what the apply function does, and you can see the description here. Also, we have the scale function. Basically, it's used to scale the variable. You can also see what the scale function does. So you type the question mark, type scale, and you see the description on this side. So what we are going to do is we are going to create three variables here, which are vectors, and we are going to make a small data frame, and from that data frame you are going to see how to extend that and how to use it when we have a big data set. So I created three variables here. I call fy, ft, and tk. So these are vectors, and we can tell that they have the same number of elements. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 elements for each of them. So we put them together and make a data frame. So I'm going to store that data frame in a variable that I call n. So n is a data frame, and the variable are fy, ft, and tk as it is here. So when you run this, now if you look at what you have in n, if you type n here, we can see that n is a data frame just as our original data set. So if you type names, and you pass in n, you can see that you have I did a mistake here. So if you type is n, not m. If you type names, then inside you pass n, you hit enter, you can see that you have the name of your variable in the data set just as the normal data set. So this is the data set. So what we are going to do here, you can see how to do some operation on column. Let's say we want to create a new data set that we call mn, and in that data set we are going to extend and create a new variable that is the sum of the first and the second variable. Basically, we're trying to create a new data frame that contains fy, ft, tk is, and a new variable that is the sum of fy and ft. So to do so, I can simply create like mn, then and in nm I store a data frame that contains fy, ft, and you can see that here, if I want to add two variables, I can simply type fy plus ft. If I want to subtract, I can say fy minus ft. If I want to subtract -1 to everybody to fy, I can say fy minus -1 minus 1, something like that. So I chose this case to do the addition. So you can apply any type of operation here, subtraction, multiplication, and so on, or you can simply subtract one particular element from that data set from one single variable. So what we do here, if I type let us run this command, and then if I type mn here, mn, you see that we have a new data set, and you can tell that this plus 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 plus 4 is 9, and 6 plus 8 is 14, and 0 plus 1 is 1. So this new variable is the sum of the first and the second variable. But the problem here is they have the R give us this name by default, but you can choose to pick a specific name. So let us say I want to call that new variable ft, and ft. So this name, I simply create like that new variable, and be careful here, equal to, then in that as store C. So I have access the name of the data set. You have to put the name of the data set to have access of that variable. So I put m because it's my data set, it's the data set m. Then inside, what I do is I have a $fy plus I have a $ft, because this is what you have to do if you have a normal data set that you download or you import from somewhere. So you put the name of the data set, you put the name of the variable that you want to add, you put the name of the data set, you put the name of the other variable. So this is how to add two variables from this data set, that is n. Then I can store in tf/tft. So this is what I have here. Now I can make a new data frame using that new variable that I created, so knowing that this variable is the sum of the first variable in this data set n and the second variable in this data set n. So I'll create the new data set. So what I can do is I put mn equal to this. Then if I type mn, you see that if I run this line, you see that it's a new data set. It's the same information as what we have earlier in this one. It's the same thing, but now I have a specific name that I chose. So you can choose your own name. Another way of doing this, you can simply type if I call let's say kk equal to data.frame frame in this case. Then inside of writing all this, I simply type the original data set, that type n, then comma, then I type this new name that I created, tf slash ft. Then I run this. It's the same thing as what I did previously. It's the exact same thing as this one, because it's the same it's just a different way of doing things, but it's same result. So when I run this, you see that's the same data set exactly. So you're doing this, you save a lot of time because you have to type all this, but you can do this to avoid some typing. So this is how to do some operation. And what you apply here, you can subtract, you can multiply, you can subtract by 1, you can subtract one variable by 1, you can multiply one variable by something. So you can just, this is just a particular case that I pick. You can do a lot of things. Now if you want to apply the same operation to all the variable, you don't want to spend time doing that individually. What you can do is you can write a function that does that and call it in the apply function. So in this case, I create a function that I call compute. So the function in R, to create a function, simply type the name of your function here and you type function. This word had to be there all the time if you want to create a function. So this is the name of the function that you want to create. You put your own name here. You can call this maybe Alex or whatever, or Eric, or just pick some random name here, or a scale, something like that. You pick a name, you put here. Then the function, this is the R function. You have to put this because you see that's in green, so you have to put this as it is. Then my function take as an argument a vector, then multiply every element in that vector by 3. So basically, if I pass a vector in this function, that this function is going to multiply every element by 3. So that's why you see I put the x star 3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the apply function. So I call m3 equal to apply. So inside I pass the n. If you see the apply function have this parameter. This parameter is your data set. The second parameter is it can be either 2 or 1. When you use the 2, you're trying to apply this function on columns. If you use the 1, that means you want to apply on rows, but in this case you want to apply on columns. So I just put 2 here because I want to apply that on columns only. Now I can run this and see what you have. So if I look at this new data set, which is I call m3, so you can see that. Let us look at this. What was the initial data set? N. If you see n, the n data set was this. So when you look at this new data set, you can tell that this is, you multiply basically every element by 3. So you multiply 2 by 3 to get this one, you multiply 4 by 3 to get 12, you multiply 6 by 3 to get 18, you multiply 1 by 3 to get 3, and so on. So basically the 3 that I apply here, this function that I apply here, I created this function here. When I call this function here and I use the apply function, this function apply. So basically this function, you use this function on all the variable in this data set. That's why you see that we have this result as it is. So I call my compute function here, and the compute, what the compute function does, multiply every element of the input by 3. So that's why you see we have this, and we apply this on all the data set. So this is very useful when you are running some kind of analysis and you are dealing with some huge data set. You can apply that to use to do some computation on that, on every variable at the same time. And you can see that we use the apply function here to standardize the data set. So to standardize data set, I'm going to standardize the data set that we are going to be using in the following lecture. So I call it Z data, and in Z data I store the standardized data set. So I apply in my data set 2. We say that 2 stands for columns, and I use the scale function. So the scale function is used to scale the variable. So I scale all the variable in data set, then I store in Z data. So let us run this. So when I run this, I can do the summary and see what I have in summary. So when in summary, I have this. So this is my standardized data set. Now we are going to use this standardized data set Z data in the following video. Thank you, and see you on the next video.